sick, but she really wanted to make sure that I tell you guys that she wanted to be here. And if she could make it, she would have. From this, I also want to say I'm really thankful to the contribution Steve and Rob have been doing, and the guidance that I've been getting from them, from the whole wheel community, but especially from these 2 and 3. So thank you so much, and I will hand it to you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Okay.
All right, Steve, kick us off.
All right, I got to share this PowerPoint, right? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming on a lovely Thursday as I try and figure out how to share something, even though we've been doing Zoom for how long now? 20-something years, it sounds like. And of course, I hit the wrong one. Okay, well done. Okay, so thank you all for coming. And again, the topic of our talk is community building, the key to a sustainable statewide OER program. And thank you all for coming and listening to our talk here. So, as Mohammed alluded to in his opening, the Open Textbook Collaborative Grant was put together to create, disseminate, sustain, and incorporate open educational resources into high-cost STEM and technical education programs. Hold on, I got to move some of these bars around my screen. As was alluded to, we have a $1.44 million 3-year U.S. Department of Education fund for the improvement of post-secondary education grant. And those of you who have been with us for a while will know, well, that 3-year grant should have ended December 31st, 2023, but we managed to get a no-cost extension for the 4th year to continue with our work. So the consortium, it's led by Middlesex College. Some of our partners are Rowan University, with support from Rutgers University, New Jersey Institute of Technology. I see Ann in the room, so she's helpful in that, as well as our New Jersey Council of Community Colleges, Vail, Edge, NJ Transfer. As we are trying to build a community, we tried to bring in as many folks as possible from around the state. So what we're doing is finding collaborators across community and faith-based organizations, state and local governments, business and industry, all in the service of creating open educational resources so that students of all levels have the ability to get in on the ground floor of some of our good career pathways in New Jersey. Following up on that, when we designed the grant, went through our application, worked with our partners, there was that conscious alignment to the New Jersey County College's Pathways to Career Opportunities initiative. We figure you want to be able to build communities that are going to sustain this work past the time of a grant, because as we know, most grants have an end date on them. So if you're going to do that, why not partner with people who can conceivably continue the work once you're gone or help it along the way? Now, with our folks with the Pathways to Career Opportunities, it was determined that we should focus our efforts on 4 main groups of jobs: energy and infrastructure, health services, innovation and technology, and everyone's favorite, global manufacturing and supply chain management. So the way we wanted to focus the grant and tell people how we wanted to do, we kind of came up with 5 main goals that we're working on, as you can see from this graphic here. Of most importance to our talk today is we wanted to create communities of practice in these industry sectors. So we wanted to gather people with expertise in this and pull them together with partners who have the skill to build OERs. So on the one hand, you have the content folks, and then you have the support staff, people that can help them. And we wanted to create those communities of practice, have people working together to continue that work for the foreseeable future. What we could do is create high quality OER course textbooks for the highly enrolled STEM Perkins and Gateway courses. And as we moved along on the grant, we realized it wasn't just textbooks that was the need. A lot of the need in the state as ancillaries. Sometimes there's textbooks out there, but folks and instructors just don't have maybe a lab, a lab kit or a test bank or a study guide. So we had folks working on that. Key to this movement was establishing an open source, open publishing platform, complete with peer review and versioning functionality. And that is our open publishing tool that is part of our OpenNJ repository. And we will get into that a little bit later. And some of our other goals were to spread it nationwide, or at least to the neighboring states, and to build this national collection to share OER materials. Now, building those national collections are a lot of grants are doing the same. And as you talk about open access and open repository, that is a topic that's coming up lately. Why do we have so many repositories? Why can't we kind of gather together in one? But that's for a different talk and a different time. Finally, we wanted to expand our project outcomes through professional development and expansion. Again, building those communities of practice, sustainability, and so forth. And I think I'm turning this over to Rob at this point.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. All right. So what does it take to make this project sustainable? Our approach has been, as Steve touched on, that we're building a tool set that is open source, that is got a system in place to sustain it, which is centered at Middlesex College, but also includes support from Vail, which is our statewide academic library consortium. It also includes thinking about ecosystems. What are the ecosystems that this is part of, right? It is the library community as a driver, but there's also relationships that we build with groups like NJ Transfer, with the individual institutions who are part of this grant, with groups like the NJCC, CCC, and really taking a statewide approach has allowed us to leverage those relationships to increase the impact of our project. But going forward, that also means there's more robust support across institutions, more people who are invested in the success, the ongoing success of this project. So that's a big part of this. And then up at the top, you've got communities of practice. And honestly, that's really where the rubber meets the road, right? We have now dozens of faculty members around the state, dozens of instructors, as well as instructional designers, librarians, and others who have been engaged in creating the content that now lives in OpenNJ as part of the OTC collection. And all of those folks are participating in spreading the word to others to promote adoption of these resources, and also maintaining these resources, which continue to be enhanced and improved even today, right? We have regular meetings on a weekly basis to check in and see, okay, what's been done to update this resource and so on. And additionally, we have reviews that are being solicited, as we talked about the peer review process. And feedback from those reviews goes to the authors and other people in that community that teaches that particular subject, and can be turned around and then incorporated into improved version of that, whether it's a textbook or a lab workbook or whatever kind of OER content it is. And again, and the tools help support that as well, right? Because they have the facility for versioning and so on. So a lot of information packed into just, 3 overlapping balls in the air, right? That we're trying to merge into one functional package. So next slide, Steve. Okay. So taking a step back and kind of pulling apart, teasing apart some of the different threads here, right? The first thing is that by having this industry area approach, we've created 4 close-knit teams that have really continued to work together. And there's been some turnover in the project. We've had a few different librarians in different areas and a few different instructional designers, but we've had also consistency, in the team, and this sense of momentum where each team can go off and work on its own, but also benefit from the work of the other teams. And so this combination of, let's call it healthy competition plus collaboration, has really made for a healthy ecosystem in terms of the overall group engaged in the work of the grant. So you talk about the curriculum council and the project teams and so on, right? There's also, I think, a lot of work went in the planning phases. And again, this is where Marilyn, our fearless PI really guided us well, was sort of breaking down and saying, okay, there's got to be a group that's focused from a curriculum aspect. There's a group that's focused from a production and design aspect. There's a group that's way in the weeds on the technology of the platform itself. And again, these project teams have really knit things together, and that's where Steve and his role has been the glue binding this project together. But then we have this larger network on the advisory council, right? Because not all of the institutions participating in this grant are represented on the curriculum council and the project teams. The way we've brought them to the table is through having this advisory council regularly soliciting their input in terms of how can we improve the work that we're doing, helping getting their support in evaluating project proposals that were coming our way, and then also helping us gather data, right? Because even though they weren't all directly involved in creating all the OER, at this point, I believe we have, if not all of the institutions successfully piloting OER created during this project. Is very close to all of the county colleges in the state of New Jersey, as well as Rowan, and I believe a couple of the other four-year colleges have piloted this content as well. So
Yes.
again, it's a really broad use case, and that advisory council has a lot of helpful information for us, but is also then that extended network that really helps contribute to the sustainability of this project. So next slide, Steve.
Yeah, before we hit that slide, I wanted to touch on
Sure.
the first part of our slide here, the developing diverse and empowered teams for each industry area. Once, New Jersey is probably one of the more diverse states in the nation. We know that
Mhm.
in terms of everything, culture, age, career paths, and so forth. It's just that kind of a state. And in the ways people work too. I mean, this is a type of grant that's relying on, there's a core team that's devoting much of their day to it. I'm like a full-time employee on it, but a lot of it
Mhm.
is work that people were putting in after their day jobs. So
Mhm.
one of the ways we had to work that is we had to empower these teams. We know they're not going to be on call 24/7 for us. So they had to have the ability to do their work, pass it up the chain, and then if we need to refine it, revise it, edit it, we have that line of communication open. So, and that also involves just not micromanaging people. So I wanted
Mhm.
to point that out, that we were working with empowering people as well, using a bottom-up approach, as well as having, the top of the program, providing the tools, providing the infrastructure and the environment to support everyone in their work.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate the assist, and also just a good example of how our team really helps each other out. So next slide, please. All right. So this, recapitulates some of the ideas that you've seen on previous slides, right? But I think it gets to a different side of the coin talking about diversity, because we have really diverse student populations. And I have to say, one of the most amazing things as part of this grant is seeing presentations from some of the faculty who are working at, I'm thinking about Claude Karani up at Passaic County College, for example, right? And the students that she's working with gave video testimonials of, how much they enjoyed working with her OER textbook that she created for their accounting course. And many of them had taken a previous course, right? Where they were using a commercial textbook, and the fact that there wasn't a cost associated with it, the fact that they, many of them would either rent textbooks or buy and then sell them back to sort of keep the money to be able to buy the next round of textbooks for the next round of courses. The fact that they can hold on to that OER, go back to it, refer to it. And many of them, we even heard from one student who had been unsuccessful the first time around in the class and had to retake it, but in retaking it with the OER, excelled in the class and got a much higher grade, and decided to actually stick with accounting as a major. So, hearing directly from those students has been one of the most rewarding things about this grant, because ultimately they're who we were doing it for, right? We were doing this as a way to reduce barriers for students in our institutions, and frankly, even people who weren't yet students, right? That they would not have the same cost to degree that can be, or credential that can be such a holdup for people. And I think we're seeing right now with people talking about, student debt is obviously a very salient issue for people at the moment for a variety of reasons. So everything we can do to help on that count, frankly, that help goes more to benefit, students who've been traditionally disadvantaged and underrepresented groups. So the other piece that's really a core of this grant has been having community colleges at the center. And obviously I'm at Rowan and we're part of this grant too, but part of having us on board was frankly because Rowan is an institution that is thriving as much as it is because it has very proactively partnered with community colleges in the region and worked to develop, 3+1 and 2+2 programs, and really also focused on STEM and career education as a path for people to well-paying careers, right? One of our pillars at Rowan is that we are an economic engine for the state of New Jersey, especially for Southern New Jersey. And frankly, our county colleges are too. And that's why we partner with them. And that's why this grant is centered around the work of county colleges in getting people the skills they need to get good, rewarding jobs, but also put them on the path to a career, right? And so that's where the partnership with the NJCCC and looking at the industry groups we're going to target was a priority for us. So, Steve, is there anything else you want to add in about this slide before we jump to the next one?
It's kind of related to the slide, maybe. I just had
Yeah.
a flash of an idea going through my head for a slide
All right.
for whatever presentation we do next. When I'm thinking about what we're doing with this grant and with the open education movement in general, is think of a relay race. You have 8 people lined up to start. If some students are able to afford the textbooks, they're like 5 steps ahead. But if you provide everyone their open access or their open educational resources from the beginning, everyone's starting at that starting line from the same time. Doesn't guarantee the same outcome, but it gives everybody a fair shake and a fair shot at getting into these, more lucrative career paths. Okay.
That's a good metaphor, Steve. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. So coming back around to this idea of communities of practice, and for folks who aren't familiar with the literature on communities of practice, right? At its base or at its core, a community of practice is a group of people, typically who share a profession or who share an industry area, right? That they have a shared purpose that brings them together, and they have, overlapping but not completely commensurate experience in whatever that project or area of work is, so that they can benefit from each other from more casual and unstructured interactions, and they can kind of hop in and hop out as needed, right, to that community. So doing things like setting up regular meeting times or occasional presentations and things like that, right, we're contributing to bringing people together who have these shared purposes and trying to seed these communities of practice. And so some of that is the work of us, the executive team. Some of it is the work of the curriculum council, who are, on the ground working more directly with the authors, right, and the project teams as well. And then some of that is the outreach to the advisory council to pull in partners from other institutions and spread the word about the opportunities that we're creating for communities of practice to come together and to really contribute to refreshing the OER that's been created under this grant, getting it out into more classes so that it can benefit more students and frankly more faculty, because the faculty and instructors who've been involved in this project and created OER have really, and again, we have the survey data to back this up, been pleased with the outcomes they are seeing in terms of putting this OER to work in their classes. Right. It allows them to tailor what they're doing to their, preferred pedagogical style and methods. And it also allows them to tailor the curriculum to really, be closely coupled, to have the materials closely coupled to the curriculum, where a commercial textbook might not give you that flexibility. All right.
Okay.
So back to you,
And
Steve.
yeah, and one of the reasons that I put together this slide with the arrows going, because it's not just one community, it does take communities of practice with a grant of this scale and reach throughout the state, throughout many different populations. And we just really couldn't do it alone. I mean, can't just be 4 or 5 people in a room just, you know, doing it. So we had to make that conscious effort to develop through meetings and gatherings and outreach to the communities of practice. Sometimes they'll mix together, sometimes they don't, but we do need to keep that going to keep what we've done over the past 3 years, giving it a life after the grant. So, and that's where we take this idea of the communities of practice and link it or move it towards sustainable practices. And you ask yourself, we're talking about it, but how do you do it? That's where the rubber meets the road again. How do you do it? So the 3 things that I'd say from our experiences over the past few years is you really have to take the time to work on relationship building. As I was saying before, a lot of our folks working on the grant, it's something secondary to their prime job. So, and you have to be aware of that. You have to be able to take that into account, not take certain things personally if it takes a while for someone to get back to you. But you really have to put that effort into the relationship building. And that means, conversations, reaching out, and all that goes into that. Second thing that I think helped us succeed more was this team-based approach. And wherever we could, we put together separate teams. So for our global manufacturing and supply chain management group, they have an instructional designer. They have a lead curriculum chair that does things. They have a librarian assigned to their team, and they work with all their faculty. We come together at meetings fairly regularly to see what's going on with each team, but each team is kind of doing its thing on its own. So there'd be a team of those members for each of the 4 groups, for the global manufacturing, the innovation and technology, energy, and the health services. And along with this, the relationship building and the team-based approach, we needed to give flexibility in decision making to people. The worst thing in the world when you're working on a large project is you send that email out there asking for clarification on a point, and you don't hear anything for 4, 5, 6 days. It just stops momentum, uh, gets morale into a bad place. So in order to do that, in order to avoid that, we needed to build in processes that allow for the flexibility in decision making. And as part of the way I lead, I'll say, go do something. Don't, ask for forgiveness. Don't wait up. Don't wait for us. If you can't, if you can't, there's pretty much nothing you really can do that's going to have a permanent and negative effect. We can always fix it. So we wanted to empower our people that we're working with to have that flexibility and power to make their own decisions. Anything you want to add to that, Rob? Okay.
I just wanted
So,
to see this slide. It's one of my favorites.
I know you're waiting for it. Tools of the trade. We talked about tools a little bit in terms of this, and I just love the slide too. So I'd say one of the main tools that we are using is the open publishing tool and the open NJ repository. That's some of the tools we needed. We needed to create infrastructure where people can go to get their documents, go to have professional development, go to learn about what other folks are doing about the projects and so forth. So I'd say some of the tools we had are the OpenNJ repository itself, and I'll show that in a minute or two, which houses the Open Textbook Collaborative. But we also put together a website and a LibGuide platform that also talks about all the goings on with the Open Textbook Collaborative. And What other tools, Rob? I think that's generally what we're looking at, right?
I mean, those are the core tools, but I guess I would say, one of the great things, right, is that there are so many kind of tool sets out there to help with collaboration these days. I mean, we got our regular Zoom meetings and, I mean, thinking about, we haven't really talked about it today, but early on, it was very much at the forefront of our minds that we were starting a project that got funded just before COVID, right, became an international pandemic. And so without so many of those tools, this grant, we wouldn't have been successful as we were. And, I'm just grateful for all those tools that allow us to come together like we're coming together today. So,
Yeah, it's the collaboration tools. And now I'm getting my train of thought back. I was looking at the physical tools on this page and now I'm Yeah, I mean, we had the SharePoint environment that Middlesex College set up for us to get started. And that worked to a certain extent, but there were some difficulties with that as well. And we weren't afraid to pivot. Again, you got to be flexible when you're doing something on this level. So we were able to, use certain Google Drive for certain things, other people's technology. We just kept it going. Okay. So we are, as I said before, in year 4 of this grant, which was supposed to be a 3-year grant. So our funders recognized that there is benefit to allowing us to continue for the near future. And we wanted to talk about our strategies for the post-grant sustainability. And a lot of this goes into what's going on with the open publishing tool and our websites and our open NGA repository. So one of the things we focus on are promoting replicable, can I say that 5 times fast? Promoting replicable practices. And part of that is we want to be able to build templates that are easily usable by folks all over the place. And we want to have workflows that we're able to demonstrate with some of our professional development, what works best to get a virtual microscope out, or what works better for this type of ancillary. So we want replicable practices. And we also know that, some things work for a time, some things don't work. So we're always, while we're doing this, practicing principles of continuous improvement, continually assessing what we're up to, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and modifying it as necessary. We're never afraid to change a practice. We're never afraid to change a workflow. So another strategy we need to do is the continued support of OpenNJ, the OTC website, and open publishing. We're in communication now, looking at continued funding through other grant services, other grant auspices. So we're keeping an eye out for doing that and looking for ways that this just doesn't go away once the grant ends. Standalone professional development helps with that as well, because it gives people the tools and the skills to do some of the work ourselves. One of the ways we're thinking this will work is, on the whole, not just with the professional development, but with the support of OpenNJ, is we're going to make it so with the open publishing tool, you can use somebody's OER that we've produced with the OTC. You can make your own edits to it and then submit it back into the OpenNJ itself. So that's a way for a versioning and something to be 2nd edition to a 3rd edition to a 4th edition. Just keeping that open, keeping that professional development alive for new interested people. And finally, we have to work with our targeted marketing and advertising. That's a no-brainer. That's just outreach, and more outreach.
Steve, I just wanted to add, a quick thought too about the versioning, which I think is so important and easy to underestimate, right? Is the fact that the number one thing that we are hearing from instructional, instructors and faculty around the state is the importance of ensuring that the curriculum, right, reflected in the OER matches the curriculum at their institution in order to try and move towards transferability.
Yes.
Obviously, being a a county college centered project, that's part of why NJ Transfer has been at the table as a partner on the advisory council from the very beginning, is because having the capacity to both have a shared core, right, and then make the necessary adaptations to bring it in line with what's happening at your own institution and have that balance, I think is really one of the significant virtues of the way we've structured the functionality of the open publishing tool and the way the collections are built in the open NJ repository. That to me is really where supporting not just adoption of existing OER, but adaptation is going to support the sustainability of this project and also increase its reach.
Great. And I think we'll turn it over to questions. And I'm going to, I think there's one more slide with our names on it. Let me get through that.
Sure.
Yeah. There's me,
Excellent.
there's
Thanks,
Marilyn,
Steve.
there's Rob, and most importantly, well, obviously not today because it's Thursday at noon right now, but we meet weekly Thursdays at noon at this URL address.
And
Takes you to a nice
and
Zoom meeting. Yeah.
And I'm going to drop in the chat that link as well as some other helpful links, the link directly to the OTC collections in OpenNJ and to our project website. And if you're here and you're an instructor and you're thinking about how do I get involved, how do I adopt or adapt some of these materials, ask your questions of us because we can help with that. But that website has a lot of the information as well.
Great. Now we can go a couple ways. We got about 10 minutes. I can show you some of the websites for our collection,
Sure.
or we can just take questions. So I'll throw it open to the.
So I see a question from Fran Keenan. She's asking, is there anything about OER legislated in NJ? So the answer is yes, and it is very minimal. There is a requirement that each college and university submit a plan for how it is going to use both OER and I'm trying to remember the phrase. I mean, I suppose they call it inclusive access, although I don't think that's what it says in the legislation. And anyways.
And that was back in 2019. Every institution had to submit a report, and from what I can tell, it's sitting in a drawer somewhere nicely in Trenton, probably.
All right. I see Sue Jones's comment. I'm inspired to at least tag the person or two at our big U. You're in Champaign, okay, to see if anybody's thinking this direction. Sue, I hope so. This is definitely feels like a movement that is national at this point. Steve and I have presented at a whole bunch of conferences, not just in New Jersey, but we've done, I think, Open Publishing. We've done the Open Education Conference.
Northeast OER.
Northeast OER. Some states, frankly, are ahead of New Jersey in having state-driven support for these kinds of initiatives. Pennsylvania, right next door to us, has given money to PALSI, the library consortium, to try and adopt a statewide approach to OER creation. But we're doing our part here with the support from the Department of Education FIPSI awards.
I'm at community college, and so I see the whole career, like the whole community part and the whole inclusion thing is huge to me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do think there are more people following the model that we're trying to have here, but I think you're right. It tends to be led a little bit top down with a lot of these projects rather than ground up. And that's been our focus. Let's go from the ground up because frankly, that's where more students can benefit.
Yeah, I know Rob put some of the URLs in the chat box, but I just threw up let's not say throw up. I put up the latest version of our catalog, which is available through any of those linked sites that we have there. And somehow I managed to do this, which will tell you what we have going on in biology and chemistry. As you can see here, some courses are forthcoming. Some we've already run. Some are designed to be used alongside OpenStax books. And we've included student reviews, and we'll be working on faculty reviews as well going forward. So some of the things we can do, should I open up the virtual microscope? What do you think, Rob?
You know what? Go for
got
it.
time?
I think that's one of our favorite projects. So folks who haven't seen the virtual microscope, this is built in Unity, which is a framework for creating kind of 3D visualizations. People use it to make movies, but also video games. And so one of the nice things about this project is that it's an extensible design, which means that people can add new slides to the virtual microscope. I'm seeing Sue's comment, I work with underprepared students in math. So Sue, we actually have some materials that leverage MyOpenMath as for problems, but have a textbook in help me out, Steve. What's the title of
The beginning algebra? Is that the one?
the
we're
beginning
speaking of?
algebra? Thank you. Right. So we have
Yeah.
materials in that area for you if you want to take a look at the catalog and or the repository and check them out.
Sorry, of course, my computer started to do random updates in the middle of a presentation.
Of
I'm sure
course,
most
that's
of us have
the
had that problem. So this is our friends at the County College of Mars put together this cool microscope. And as it's loading up, you get to see their nice logo alongside some of our logos as well. And this is all in the Open Textbook Collaborative Collection, which is in the OpenNJ. Let's see if this is going to work for us. I know they recently came back to us. They were like, oops, we had a problem with one of the slides. Can you guys fix that for us? And that's why it's probably taking a little more time to load.
either that or it's that sweet background music.
Yeah. Do we shut that off?
I can't hear it.
Hmm.
So I think the sound
there
will
it
come
is.
through. All right.
Can you hear it there?
Nope.
Good. So this is basically a virtual microscope, which was conceived. Our friends at CCM were like, we've been using Flash, and guess what? Nobody supports Flash anymore. So we need to put this together to help our students. And COVID was going on too, so it was a perfect way for a student who couldn't go to a lab or something like that, and to be able to work with a microscope. And it's pretty simple. Bio 101. Let's take a look. I'm interested in looking at whitefish blastulas. Kind of gives you the hint. Boom, all of a sudden it's in there. Do I want to zoom in on it? No. All different controls, and it simulates what goes on in a biology lab. And the second one they're building for us is something that you'll be able to download yourself and put together your own slides and set up at some of your colleges as well. So that's one of the types of projects we did. Like we said, we thought we were going to be starting with all textbooks all the time, but people came to us with such interesting ideas that we said, why not expand it? I mean, we're a flexible environment. That's what we need to do. Okay.
All right. Other questions from folks about what's involved in adopting OER that's in OpenNJ, or I'm curious if anybody also has questions about how we handle reviews of the OER that in the repository. So if seeing no further questions, I guess I'm going to just thank everybody for joining us today and say, please follow up with me and Steve if you are interested in learning more about how you can contribute, how you can, bring the work that we've done to your institution. we look forward to collaborating with folks. The whole point of being open is to reach as many people as possible. So
Yeah.
the more that we can do, the better, the better we succeed.
Great. Thanks again for stopping in.
Thank you so much. It was a great session, and I mean, this is funny. Every time I listen to you guys, I learn something new or more. So thank you again. And we have 2 more sessions scheduled, 3 more sessions scheduled at 1 p.m. And I have put links for 2, and 1 more session will be posted in a few minutes. Please join those sessions, and we're looking forward to see some of you or all of you in those sessions. Thank you again.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you, Mohammed, for
Take
hosting
care.
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Mhm.